Good morning, thank you all for coming. It is 10 a.m. so I'll get our meeting started. Make best use of everybody's time. If you have not already done so, please sign in. There are agendas over here as well. So we'll do a brief introduction. We'll start with Roger and we'll work our way around.
So I'm Roger Rayle. I'm chair of CARD and chair of SAR Residents for Safe Water. And because we often run out of time, I don't get to show some of this stuff. I'm going to pass this around ahead of time and see if you guys could walk and chew gum at the same time. So let's pay attention to what's going on and still look at information that you wouldn't otherwise need to get to see.
And I'm
I'll
Beth.
explain it later.
I'm Beth Collins, Secretary of CARD, Ann Arbor resident.
Vince Crusoe, a board member of CARD and ordinary member for the Allen Creek Watershed Group, Ann Arbor resident.
I'm Bob Bailey, a Scioview resident. I'm Bob Hyde, a Scioview resident.
Kathy Knol, Scioview trustee.
Joe Chen with EGLE.
Kevin Lund with EGLE.
Dan Hamel with EGLE. I'm the project manager for the government sector.
All right, Knol, Assistant Attorney General, sign the case.
Back to the back row, we got
Colleen Flynn, I'm a PhD student from Wayne State University.
Piano Lackman, also PhD student from Wayne State.
I'm Brendan O'Leary, I'm a PhD student from Wayne State.
I'm a Scioview resident.
Patty McCall with Tetra Tech. Kathy McDonald with the University of Michigan.
Jennifer Conlon, Public Health Engineer for Washtenaw County Health Department.
Hi there, Kristen Schwako for the Environmental Health Director with the Washtenaw County Health Department.
Chana Milky, Ann Arbor resident.
James Demore, Ann Arbor resident.
Okay, again, if you did not sign in, if you could please, we can pass the sign-in sheet around.
So I just out of the room and you introducing yourselves. I'm Jack Eaton. I serve on the Ann Arbor City Council and I apologize for leaving the room. So.
The next item on the agenda is for the board to vote on approval of the minutes from January 7th. And I move to approve the minutes from January 7th. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved.
Okay, so we'll touch base on some old action items. It looks like there's a list under the EGLE items. So
They're always it.
yes, Dan, I'll go to you for there.
The status of the trend analysis review, as it hasn't changed since the last month's CARD meeting. We are still, it's ongoing. We've done a preliminary review. As I said then, we're going to be utilizing the a trend analysis, try to use our trend analysis to modify and implement the new sampling plans that are going to be discussed and made with Gelman once the new CJ is put in place. That is, it's not in the CJ specifically, other than just they have to do a sampling plan, so we'll modify the existing one. I think I've said this before, just so people to answer some questions. The reason it's not a comprehensive trend review, trend analysis review right now is we asked them to identify, come up with a trend analysis on selected wells. They added some, I added some, and just to see the statistical approach, what they would utilize, what they would do for a trend analysis, and it wasn't meant to be comprehensive at this time. If we come up that we can, this is a valuable tool for that modification, implementing the new sampling plan, then we will undoubtedly be getting a more comprehensive plan from them to discuss. The CARD and other stakeholders have given us some preliminary review comments. Those will be utilized. We had those same comments in our preliminary review. So I can commit that any comments we get, we're going to be discussed with Cal.
Oh, yes, please. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda that is the status of new compliance wells in the Scioview development district. For those of you that don't know, in September, the owner of Scioview development to the west of the Gelman property requested to Gelman that certain wells on that property be abandoned at this time because they are within the footprint of what is proposed building for that development area. The wells that were abandoned were MW63S, I, and D, shallow, intermediate, and deep. They requested that prior to abandoning those, and we gave our approval in September. They did that, they abandoned them properly in September. I got an abandonment of well logs, and those are available if people are interested in that. What they actually did is basically remove some casing and put grout from, fill the well up with grout. Those wells, two of the wells, as I have discussed before, are compliance monitoring wells under the current CJ. They are marked on the map in yellow on the western area. Those are compliance monitoring wells. And so there were some questions by some of you and other stakeholders of were you going to replace those? Well, what we are doing, as I said before, is going to replace those as part of the implementation of the modified CJ. As you know, the CJ, the main part of the CJ is to implement the new one, the modified one, is to reduce the drinking water cleanup criteria from the current 85 identified in the CJ to 7.2, which is what now is in under Michigan law. And so I did not want to replace wells just to have a well, same location or a couple feet away. I wanted to replace those wells in logical locations to be utilized as compliance monitoring wells. So we have not done that yet. Again, it'll be based upon once the CJ is modified. For information, as far as the old wells, there has not been just a couple of detections here and there over the years, but some of it going back may be a little laboratory problem because most of them have been non-detects all the way through. And we've sampled those prior to abandonment and they were non-detects, as my information says. So that, like I said, that will be in the future. Yes, sir.
So the CART group had asked in the past that new wells be considered to go to bedrock.
These wells, well, at least the initial well,
Yeah.
will be the initial of a cluster. Let's say that
right.
assume a cluster will be.
I don't know, did you mention that already? I'm sorry.
No, I did not. The technique that is will be used in most monitoring wells, new wells, will be at least a well drilled to bedrock with profiling, sampling groundwater as you go down to get an idea of what the vertical concentrations are at that location, and to identify particular aquifers if we can, and in particular clay layers, confining layers that would break, would stop contamination from migrating downward. So that will be done initially. Then any of the other clusters would be drilled to where we would set like a shallow well and an intermediate well. So we are planning on those not only here, but as it will be utilized for any deep wells that we're going to be putting in. Now, I can't say every well in the future is going to be that, because we may do some shallow wells because we have some deep ones there and do some replacement. For example, I know you're very interested in the shallow groundwater near West Park. We may, we may not go down on every way. We may put more shallow ones in with that type of investigation in that area. So
The owner that brought that up is that, we would like to see at least some wells go to bedrock because that hasn't happened on this site.
No, most of a big portion of the wells have gone to bedrock and have been profiled. If you look at the boring logs, certain locations.
How about near the core?
I think what Vince is talking about are replacement wells. Replace a well that did not go to bedrock, that those replacement wells should go to bedrock, and they should be sampled every 10 feet.
And that has happened, and you brought that up before. In the core area, they did a replacement well because the well screen was compromised. They did not do bedrock, they didn't require
exactly.
that.
So we don't know how much dioxane is still at the levels where they did not screen.
So that's just an ongoing concern we have.
And that has been
That's
identified.
why I'm bringing it up.
And like I said, any new well is going to be evaluated of some of the comments that we've got from stakeholders. we understand that.
Thanks.
Because that's the part of the reality that we don't have.
Right.
So much action is still left in these unpurged, unsampled areas.
I have to wonder if that's on purpose.
Well, it's-
My opinion
From
is that it's not,
Yeah.
it's part of, like I said, the project is under the current CJ is a risk management project. And so, they're managing risks, they're identifying.
Vince, it's on purpose in the sense that it's standard operating procedure. But this site demands more than standard operating procedure.
The next item that you have on the agenda was the status of the Allen Creek drain MS4 violation.
It's not under EGLE items.
Status of, yes it is.
It's under old business, but not under EGLE.
Oh, okay, I'm
So-
sorry, I read that as, I read that as I had Eagle, you guys, I'm all, every bullet there, I would talk, whatever, I kid.
Sounds a good place to stop.
Yeah.
That's not an EGLE issue?
Well, who added it? Who put that agenda?
It's just been,
That's been an
Part of
ongoing.
Okay, well, it's
Question.
EGLE Water Resources, so we just want to clarify, Dan's with the Remediation Redevelopment Division.
And we are, I have a kind of give you an update of where it is with our discussions, because it is shared. Eagle Water Resources runs the MS4 program. The MS4 permit is the Washtenaw County Drain Commissioner, that's not the right term.
Water Resources Commissioner.
Right, he is, holds the permit for
Yep.
Washtenaw County. We have, Water Resources has.
But he's delegated from the state, and the state's delegated from the federal.
Right, right. So there has been, like I said, it's ongoing. They're still evaluating the response requirements with Washtenaw County. There has been some statements about, and some quoting of some of in your email, I think Dan McNeil's email, there is there is links that you pulled out to the Water Resources MS4 program, and there is a illicit discharge elimination program, IDEP compliance assistance document. So that is a good document to identify. I have a hard copy here and can tell you the links, but it's in your emails. That is a good document that gives an overall summary of the requirements of the MS4 and the options. I want to stress there are options for an illicit discharge, from elimination to permitting, NPDES permitting, and then also that that document also identifies it's not necessarily an immediate requirement to eliminate that discharge. We've had that as questions. Some of the people had said, hey, the law says you got to eliminate it. Well, there's also an option where you are developing a plan with the permittee, and that started back when we had we had discussions or surface water, we let Water Resources know back when we first back when you had asked about that time. So, and some of the stuff, some of the more detailed information that we've been discussing, I'm gonna say it again, I know you don't like it, but kind of under our negotiations, because we have GSI issues, we have similar in that area. So I can't get into any detail what some of the specific items have been identified of getting into the MS4 compliance. Yes.
So MS4 doesn't necessarily fall under the consent judgment. That's a separate issue that the community has to deal with. Has there been an initiation of some mechanism to deal with the MS4 violation with the county?
Well, yes, the Water Resources had to discuss recently with, because of the Allen Creek drain sampling we did for 6 months. I mean, I gave all that information, in response to some of your questions.
Wendell Pratt has said that he wasn't sure that EGLE, notified him that there should be something done about it, or EPA notifying him. So there was some debate about that, and I think, we wanted to clear that up as to if this was a real
Well,
violation.
I don't know what he was quoting, but,
Well,
you know,
put that
Water
in an
Resources
email. It was in an email.
has, you know, get in discussion with him about the MS4, potential MS4 violation, MS4 violation.
Not just the dioxane.
Dioxane,
the other
there's
things
other-
that were determined
others-
as well, need to
right.
be removed from the system as well.
So they are also looking at those.
Yeah.
There was two or three other volatile organics.
I just like to say that the card group in general, I would say myself at least, that, you know, we're not very happy with the fact that this is percolating into the Allen's Creek and flowing into the Huron River unabated and unregulated. So I just, you know, that's my feeling. I think the card group, you know, has made comment in the past, but not voted per se, but
The company's
Mr.
using the
They're
Mitchell
under
and the drain
regulating-
as a pipeline to the river.
Washtenaw County is under regulation, so it is regulated. And part of those attachments that were included in those emails discuss the options that they have in addressing it, their compliance assistance strategy with all of their communities, MS4 communities. So I think they're following the playbook that's put in there. How it relates to the consent judgment is actually part of the confidential
discussion.
I just want to, like I said, there's that assistance document, look at that, that goes verbally, and then also on page 18, there's a flow chart. It's a pretty good flow chart, easy to understand flow chart of what work things are, yes, no, and what are the options. So I would recommend you look at that.
But you said there was a plan. Can you elaborate on that? What's the plan?
The flow chart calls for the development of a plan.
Mhm.
That's what we're doing.
And that's not in negotiations. Can't we be privy to what the plan is and what, I mean, I don't know why that has to be secret and,
Whatever discussions that Evan wants to have with Water Resources Division are part of the confidentiality. But those parts at which are being discussed as part of the consent judgment cannot be discussed. So I can't tell you how they
Let's
would
not water resources, how did we, well, the word,
Meanwhile, the dioxane in water doesn't respect organizational boundaries, organization flow charts, and it also doesn't respect confidential negotiations. The dioxane continues to flow as we plod through the proper way to do things.
but also we are under a current consent judgment with Washtenaw County Court.
Which is, the dioxane doesn't respect that either.
Well, I understand that, but you also, you know, that is the regulating entity
That's
right
right.
now.
And it's
I
taken 3
understand
years
that
to try to get that.
we don't really like that either, but that is currently what we have.
Yeah. I'm just saying, the reality is, we're not reacting as fast as the dioxane is spreading.
So I'd like to ask a question to Attorney General's office.
We'll see if I can answer it.
See if you can answer, right. Is it legitimate to say that the MS4 is under the CJ and cannot be discussed? Or is that really inappropriate to say, you know, we're just going to throw everything into the CJ to avoid dealing with it? I don't want to see that happen. And I think
Good point.
there is a concern that we have a violation. And the bottom line of the violation that we've seen, unless it's negotiated with the county, is that there's no contamination allowed in the pipe. And we have contamination in the pipe. And the remedy that's by default is to clean it up.
But it's not the only option.
I know, but
And
I'm
that's
just,
equivalent to 2 GSI, groundwater surface water interface, under Part 201, where it's not a prohibition of all discharges. It's a, you know, prohibition of it, basically a discharge above a certain water quality criterion. So, and as far as the, you know, the discussions are, you know, amongst the parties that are negotiating the consent judgment amendments. And so it is kind of blurred in that context of the fact that, you know, it's all the same people talking that are also, you know, negotiating the consent judgment and also talking about the MS4 issue.
same contaminant.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think, you know, we're concerned with
I
the
understand,
internet.
yeah.
You know.
Saying there's other contaminants that aren't part of the
Right.
CJ2
Well, that's
that need to
something-
be addressed too.
I don't know that Dan found contaminants in that Not part of the creek?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We did,
Okay.
every sample we did for that 6 months.
Surface water from that whole area, anything that surface drains anywhere in there ends up in that pipe.
Yeah, but I did not only dioxane for all that sample.
Yeah, I know.
But the full scan VOCs, and there were some contaminants. I have the report here if you want to take a look
Okay,
at it.
I don't remember that. I know the creek behind our house had no other contaminants. Had no contaminants.
Nature,
Yeah.
Glendale.
The Glendale area.
Glendale.
That did not have it. Okay, so,
All right, I think the issue's been discussed enough, we should move on.
All right, the next item, I don't know if that would be old business, but, I mean, we can obviously address it, but would be the EGLE statement at the joint session from earlier this month.
Yeah, I needed a little clarification, Vince.
well, I think
That's
that.
what I don't
Okay.
have my answer.
Well, the argument, or that's an item that I requested, and I think, as a CARD group, we discussed at length what's going on with the West Park Allen's Creek drain, and that it picks up a lot of groundwater because I have communication with a former drain commissioner officer, that was originally designed to pick up groundwater because it was undermining basements, it would have undermined basements. So we have that issue on the west side anyway, in other locations, and undermine the roadway. So we asked EGLE or DEQ at the time to do their tests when there was a drought situation. Because we know when there's a drought, there's a huge amount of water flowing through that system. And so we were hoping that we would get a baseline test of groundwater contamination, and really simple, easy to do test. And so to DEQ's credit, you all did that, and that was good. But the fact that it was tested in a pipe does not mean that this contamination is in the pipe, because you did tests upstream in the pipe and it was not contaminated. Yet it was contaminated at West Park. So I think there's pretty good evidence to indicate, and I think we could get the engineering drawings from the Water Resources Commissioner if we'd like. But my understanding is that the actual engineering drawings would show that it is picking up groundwater. And it makes sense to me that that's picking up groundwater.
If you could get the engineering drawings, we would love them.
Okay,
Refuses to provide them.
Yeah, well, Evan's got them, and you can get them if you want them.
I'll ask
Did you say the city is refusing to?
Yes, absolutely. Multiple times.
Multiple times.
We've taken
Even
3
after
or 4 runs.
some
at it.
input.
Refusing to do what? Give you
To
plans?
release the plans for the system in that area.
Sure.
And so they want claims of homeland security issues.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, we have a city council member.
They told me
This one,
homeland
and
security.
I'm not, we will take help from
Okay.
anyone to ask
Okay.
a question.
Okay, I don't
But we
remember.
have taken it from city council people, we've taken it back door, front door, everything.
All right.
And we end up with the same answer every time.
Okay, well,
Because we really want to know that because of some of the stuff that we've been doing with modeling and stuff that we really want to get into.
Can you forward me any email or correspondence you've had from the city that refuses that? So
Yeah,
that-
yes, we can.
Oh, thank you so
Just
much.
do it right now.
When we get back to the office, we'll make it a
Yeah,
priority.
I really appreciate that. I will try to.
It is national security, again, it's not,
Okay.
that's what we've been told, so we haven't pushed
I
it.
looked at the actual pipe plans, and they're very basic. They don't show the engineering, the as-bills, so to
But
speak.
we have some of the old stuff that,
Oh, you have the old as-bills?
Well,
well,
we have paper copies from Evan for small portions of the system.
Yeah.
But we requested an electronic version of the whole system, so
Yeah.
that it would be ported right into a modeling kind of process to evaluate
and
the interactions of surface water and groundwater.
So, under your understanding, if we provided that electronic information,
Would you give it to terrorists?
would that be subject, would that be subject to FOIA
Brian?
from the state?
I can't remember from when we looked back at that.
We
whether
felt that it would
was-
still be under the preview of our FOIA exemption.
Yeah, that's right.
We would exempt it from FOIA.
Well, this is-
I don't know the exact wording, but.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna hold you to this.
the
I-
individuals that would have to sign and it may be more than one, maybe multiple people that get their hands on it. But there's the challenge of basically having to sign a non-disclosure agreement that, imposes penalties on persons.
Doesn't the state have the same situation as the city in that it doesn't release this due to the What's the rule in the?
Well, yeah, there are FOIA exemptions that
Terrorism
would,
Act.
would prevent us, or that would be a basis for not releasing it.
I just want to point out that even if you get all this and you have total understanding of where the drains are, that's still not telling where the dioxane is in the groundwater that can impact people's basins. We still need a sampling, permanent shallow groundwater sampling, like Dan Knol proposed a few years ago.
I think Card's been asking for that for
Right,
quite a
and
while.
this whole thing about the drain is a distraction to me.
Yeah.
That's good they have it, but that's not
That's what
sufficient.
got brought up.
That's not sufficient, I know, but that's not sufficient. If it's taking away your time to get permanent shallow groundwater, if you're taking time looking, trying to get drain
2016
information,
shallow
you really should
groundwater
be getting
investigation answered
permanent
that question.
shallow groundwater monitoring wells, then that's not good. That's what I mean by distraction.
We've always understood the request from CARD. We've done the work, we did the shallow groundwater investigation, and we've provided those.
A one-shot deal, but if you have permanent, then you really know over time what's happening. You knew what happened at a point in time, but you didn't know how the dioxane got there, whether it's increasing or decreasing. You don't go back and sample it again a time period later. And when we know dioxane moves in groundwater, and if you just take a one-shot sample, you're not getting the fourth dimension. Time.
And please realize, from managing expectations, please realize, Elm Creek Drain, yes, I agree, it picks up groundwater, but it picks up a whole lot of other surface water stuff that, kind of goes in
Well,
there.
that test was really quick and dirty, and I hate to say this, but this was trying to make it easy for EGLE or DEQ to do a basic, one-shot test to get I thought it would be a baseline 0. I was surprised it came back with a, 2.2 or whatever it was, part per billion, and it's gone up since then.
Right. Well, it's a trigger that there's something going on that we still haven't investigated.
Yeah, that's not an end-all, be-all.
No,
by any
I
means.
agree with that.
I think it was a quick, and I'm glad that you all did it, and I'm glad you waited until it was a dry period and did some other tests as well. And that's great, and we need to move on. We need to get a better handle on it.
And that's something that, again, you don't like, that,
Well, we're just gonna bring it up,
and I understand that some of the
Leave it
details.
relevant, that's all, there's no argument there.
For sure.
Good, let's move on.
Okay, new EGLE update. Dan.
Here, I'm just gonna pass this around like No, I'll move the what's new, I'll do at the end here. The NPDES permitting. They were not, I invited them, they were not able, the people that have come in the past were not able to come today. They gave me an update. For the renewal process, where they are, they have reviewed the application, data, and effluent, and other site-related information. I think I even they asked gentlemen to do some additional testing. They looked at that. And they're currently writing the draft permit. They're near the end of that. I can't tell you a time frame. They couldn't tell me a time frame. And the draft NPDES permit and the supplemental documents. Roger, had some questions on the supplemental recently. They're going to have a permit, and they're going to have the supplemental documents that relate to the information they reviewed to get to that permit. Once that is done, the actual draft permit is done, there's some management review internal for that. And then they send it to the GELM, the permittee, and GELM gets a chance to review it. Once they send it to GELM, and I think have a preliminary review or discussion with them, then they will basically put it out for public notice. Now, Jessica, and she confirmed that to me, has committed to this group to, once that is out for public notice, she's going to send an email to the CARD, to Roger, to, the CARD, well, probably to Roger and key people that have.
Just send it to the CARD admin.
Yeah, and so they have, I will do that too, I will make sure that happens. But she has committed with Tarek, her boss, to do that. And because she's been here and asked.
So that's the announcement that there is a public version of it for review.
Right.
After Gelman had a chance to weigh in on it.
Right, that's their process. Whether like it or not, that's how they do with everybody.
Right.
And so, then there's that comment period, and she has committed, because of the request of this group, there'll be a public meeting. You know, they'll announce at that same time that it's out for public, that they'll schedule a public meeting, so, you know. she's
What's the
committed.
comment period time?
How long?
Right now, I mean, what she had, public notice for 30 days is what she had identified. I don't know their program, I do not know, because of a lot of the questions they get, or if they get so many that they may extend that, I really don't know that process.
Is there a timeline available to say, like, when it was sent to the company, when it was going through the steps of the process?
I guess,
MI Water shows those steps.
yeah, MI Waters may show that. I mean, I'll ask that question.
Because that would help, I mean, if we have some idea, like, I've already gone to the company, and it's about to be sprung on us, you know, we'd like to know.
I don't know that question, I don't know the program.
And, you know, this is the first, I also point out, this is the first time that the water resources people haven't been to a quarterly meeting since they started coming.
Right.
This is the first one they.
Yeah, once the NPDES, if you remember last week, their renewal document, and I'm remembering this off the top of my head, so, the renewal application had to be in by April 1st of 2019. The document, the actual permit expired October 1st, 2019. Now, under their program, as they pointed out, and you know, the existing one keeps going until they get reviewed and stuff. So they at least, the renewal went in on, you know, the portions of it. I think they asked some questions. That's one of the reasons they got some additional analysis from government. So that occurred over the summer here. And they have, from day one, I think they started coming last spring too, to the quarterly meetings. They have identified that, hey, they're backlogged and this is the process it's going to be. So that's what they, Jessica has also, you know, told me that although the card group, but if there's other people that are interested, you know, I can give you her email address if they would like the notification email, like she said, she's going to get a notification email out. If other people want some direct notification other than through card, I can give you her email, and you can email her.
Well, we prefer to have, that we route it through cards so we know what other questions are being asked that we can support.
I'm just identifying what she has said, you know, what she's offering.
Because we already have those addresses. What we don't have is the draft
Right.
permit. And we don't know what that looks like going to Gelman. We don't know yet what it looks like coming back from Gelman, and whether it's going to go through interim review after that, and then we'll get to weigh in on it, and then somebody at the DEQ will have to make the decision, because there's no more Natural Resources Commission to review
And that's their
what
process.
comes out of a public hearing. And this all may change again before it actually gets implemented. And then at that point, the company can contest it, like they did back in the 90s. At the end of a 90-day comment period, they contested it. The city and the county didn't have the wherewithal to counter-contest it. And SRSW had to step in with private funds to counter-contest, to keep the company from dumping 60 to 100 parts per billion into the tributary. So we all need, the city and the county and anybody else who's concerned about this has to be ready for that eventuality or possibility. Because what the company did before, they might do again.
So that's what she has provided me, you know, again, that's a different program, so that's in their court. So I'll ask them questions or check with them about a timeline during this process, once the draft, you know, can we be notified when it's going to Gelman, what that, you know, what do they do that way? So,
And please tell them that we're disappointed that they're not at this meeting.
Okay. Yeah, well, they know, she knows. Because my invite said, oh, so that means I have to give the update. Sorry. She gave me information. And that's, the invite was given, as I said. And I'm not negative toward that either, I mean, that's.
No, everybody's got a job to do, and there's a lot of other things going on in their work. So.
Okay, the TW1821 and other temporary well update. The TW18 has the rehabilitation now. There's two things happening. Rehabilitation is the acid washing I had identified because the screens are clogging up. That was completed, and then they had a problem that they had to go back out and dig up a valve next to it, and about 4 foot away from the actual well. So they went out and replaced the seal in that one. And I think, were you at?
I went.
Because he said, well, someone came out, asked us some questions, and I
Well,
said,
It might have been me.
well, no,
I went out when they were cleaning it, she went out when they were changing.
Oh, right. And
Because a week later, they were digging again.
Yeah, so what happened is, basically, they did the cleaning, they got it back up to 150 gallons a minute, it was online, turned it back online, and then they noticed whatever, through their instrumentation, that, hey, this valve's not working right. They had to go excavate that, and that's when he said, I said, probably that, because she lives near there, and,
I said to them, who knows you're digging? And he said, only the person that contracted us, and the owner of the property. So I didn't know if you even knew.
No,
They went out there.
separate from that, the people out there,
They only know what they know.
yeah.
Right.
I got a notification, because I knew immediately that there's someone out there, because they wanted to say, hey, Dan, there were some people,
I
a
said,
woman
"People should
digging.
know you're doing
You
this."
know, but they did the notifications within the O&M, of O&M, properly. I had no problems with that. They told me, when it was done. And, but that TW18 has been completed. They were working on, last week, they were working on TW23, which is over on Maple, I believe. That's the TW23, yeah, that's over there. So they would be doing the same thing, the rehabilitation. They thought they would be completed with that by this week, the beginning of this week. After completion of that 23, they're going to move to TW19. And then they're doing another one, TW21. They have, everything started driving on basically the problems with TW18, but they are out there with a contract for rehabilitation. They're doing some rehabilitation with a presumptive remedy, if, they want, we're here, let's get some of these pumping wells, if we're here, let's go through that process, rather than jumping in and out as a gauge, gives them a reading, hey, it's lower a little bit. So we're going ahead. So they thought that they would be done with all of that within 2 weeks, starting this week. So within 2 weeks, and again, they're keeping in contact with me. They will notice me, identify when they are done. And I've also asked them to give me a quick little summary of exactly the procedures. They're doing acid washing and just what they've done for the rehabilitation.
Why did they have to do it?
Because the pumping, the extraction rate started dropping. They started getting notices. Their whole system is on electronic monitoring, if you want to say. And there are some areas, some wells that they have to maintain a certain pumping rate. So they've done everything, and and as has occurred in the past, they have got indications, hey, the stream's plugging up. And that's related to the geochemistry of the particular.
So is this similar to the clogging when they were
Injection
doing
wells.
re-injection?
Yeah, same thing. Same geochemistry reactions when they do that. And so they had to clean those wells because they weren't getting the pressure out. Well, this was the water coming in, that was.
What's actually clogging the screen?
Probably inorganics, like, calcium, magnesium, stuff. Iron and
Stuff that's dissolved in the water, whether you're,
starts precipitating out.
whether you treated it or
Contact with
not.
oxygen, it changes the status and it becomes more solid.
It's like the
Iron
calcium
too
buildup
becomes
on your shoulder.
that
Yeah, that's what he told, he was really, they were very helpful and
Yeah.
courteous. And
I want to stress,
Jesse Drew pointed to different colors of water, the big carboy, you know, and the big containers.
I want to stress, yeah, I want to stress too, that this is not outside normal O and M of a groundwater pump and treat
So
system.
Dan, it's not outside, but you're paying more attention to it now because they've been bucking for 20 years.
Right,
So they've
right.
been doing this all along.
They have been, whenever they, at least my, I mean, for my 7 years, they have been doing this all along. I mean,
So we just might not be aware of it the other times.
Right. I mean, you have to, Roger, I mean, I think the group can admit that we've been trying to be more open and information out, not to the degree that everything that you want, I understand that. But I've tried to have a little better communication, and I've required that of Gelman. I mean, you can go back and I have emails. Hey,
Right,
what's happening?
it's good to hear about it at these meetings, but we could probably save time in the meeting if we had a report of this, a progress report, before it happened, you know, this is what's going to happen. Here's why it was delayed a few days, you know.
Yeah,
basically.
I've asked them for a summary report, that's where that would be. Understand this, and
I'm sure they must, if they're doing it, they've got electronic monitoring of what's happening with the water. They probably have electronic project control over what's happening with these sub-projects. They could probably give you a project
Yeah.
update weekly.
well, they do, Roger, if on our webpage, I get monthly they send an NPDES permit, I forget what it's called, I have a copy of it here, to Water Resources, I get copied on that. In there, you can go on each well and it'll tell you when it was off, and it'll give a little bit of that, a little bit of information of why.
I could do that? You said you could do that?
Well, it's in the report, it's a PDF on the webpage. Now,
It's a PDF.
you know, it is on, right, it is, but I don't know what that Michigan Waters has. I haven't gone into Michigan Waters. They may have an electronic version that would be more suited to what you have always requested, data electronically. Now, the quarterly report, same thing. You can go in and they tell that,
What they're gonna do.
what they've done, what has happened, what wells were down, and those reasons. So you can get a bulleted outline there. So they're not hiding something. I mean, it comes monthly, and, you know, I take a look, and more recently, like I've confirmed, is they have been in direct contact with me when something goes down. Because they know I've been.
Internally, they must have a way to say, here's what's happening with that project today. Internally, they're keeping track of it.
When you mean project, what do you mean, a well?
Yeah, they're cleaning a well to be a sub-project. So they know when it's gonna be done, they get the scheduling for the people to do it. That timing is known to them and might be known to you, but not known to the public. So when somebody drives by and sees a well going in, they wonder, what is going on? Where if that information was available to the people who are worried about stuff like that, then we wouldn't have to spend time at this meeting. We could be discussing more important things.
I understand. I will give you a little experience that I have coming from the private sector. You aren't going to get their internal scheduling, you know, Outlook schedule, you know, because that changes. They're not going to be giving that. They'll give what they've been giving. I don't think that they would be receptive at all of trying to do that. So it would be a little bit after the fact from me, and I haven't really generated another report along those lines. I tried.
Well, that's understandable. They don't want somebody looking over their shoulder of how they're gonna take their dioxane out of our waters in the state. I can understand that.
Well, Dan, I do appreciate the update because you did mention at the previous meeting that they were getting ready to do this, and I did receive some email photos from concerned residents asking what was going on. So I was able to tell them.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, you know, I try to get the information as best as possible.
That wasn't it.
Because concerned citizens come. But I was told, I think the day you were out there, you know, he told his, you know, boss, I think he answered, you know, I knew that other people had gone out during the cleaning, and they have been, as far as I'm concerned, been proactive in at least notifying me. And I try then to get that out and find out. And if I get a question, I call right away. hey, I got a question from today, what are you doing?
Well, I think that's great, but I think Roger does bring a good point. This is a very sensitive issue. I think you need to prevail upon the contractors that every little thing that's happened, we are going to be deeply concerned about what's going on. And obviously, thank you for making the extra, but maybe even the extra effort needs to be made in those situations such as this.
Well, we have to, because we're not getting the easy flow of information that we used to get before.
Exactly.
Into confidential negotiations. We used to get a nice indexed summary of all of the important documents that were between the company and the state. We don't get that anymore. We might get it a year later, but we don't get it monthly.
And that was being done during the court case, so.
But
Wait,
for instance, we wouldn't have learned about the secret sampling at the core if citizens had been paying attention. And we still don't have the results of that because it's in secret negotiations.
Roger just happened to look at Google Maps.
I gotta back up there always, because Roger, you were part of the original discussion
Yeah.
when Scioview Township was entering into, or issuing a wetlands permit. You were aware before it all started what was going to be happening.
No.
Yes.
I don't know that
I
that's
understand,
a
because you
wetland
were there during the discussions, along with their environmental consultant.
Their wetland permit, but we didn't see a work plan.
Well, yeah,
But you're saying
But-
secret.
it's not that, it
wasn't
wasn't that secret.
Well, it was secret because that's the last I heard about it, that they were going to do something. But what they were going to do, putting in temporary roads in the marsh area, we still don't know what the results of those are. So the fact that I knew they were going to do something didn't make me feel better when I found out that here, they'd done something and we didn't even know what they were doing, and we still don't know what they did. I don't know if you guys even know what they did.
We do.
And there's something wrong with that. I mean, are they doing in situ?
They sample.
But are they doing in situ treatment there?
You'll find out what happens ultimately.
Yeah.
I would love to have this consent judgment modification wrapped up.
Waiting.
I'm usually the face that getting all the questions monthly, and
Yeah, there's something wrong with this process.
I don't disagree with you, the process.
Push it along if you can.
Well, before we leave this topic,
Yeah.
the NPDES permitting, part of what I've sent around was some, not new information, but some information I found from 2017 that may impact the permitting, may impact the NPDES permit. How far did that packet get around?
Roger, I know what you're talking, you sent to me.
That's the packet.
Yeah, yeah, he's,
Which one are you talking, which one do you think I'm
what,
referring
the bromate?
to? Bromate and now dioxane, they're on dioxane too.
Well, the bromate, there's, the bromate related is, once you pointed that out, I made sure, I think you even sent it to Water Resources, and I was copying on it. I basically went back, pulled to June 2017, and if you look on there, in that, and it's on the webpage, the Gelman month of June, their sampling and analysis laboratory report, they identified that they, because their chemist was out, that they sent it off to the external lab. This is what we're, and that there was a different method used. And they identified that in that document too, that their method was higher. They were getting higher results than the methods used by Gelman, the EPA method. And then they also identified that, and I haven't gone back and confirmed this, they also identified that that method had a lot of interference because of the geochemistry, because of the water, an analysis, and that they, in the literature, that the problem of interference and higher results is
Yes.
documented.
Go ahead,
on
spot what I'm talking about when I get to my.
And so I sent it to, I have sent it to Water Resources, they're looking into that, but they, you know, they were upfront at the time, in 2017. And the requirement also of the laboratory method that's used is in the current CJ. So that's, you know, they're using, Gelman is using the one. So they have not decided, you know, they were going to evaluate and have not, because of all the interferences. And the lab even did some.
Yeah, I'm going to stop you right there because what you're saying is kind of like.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, we have looked
The
at.
bottom line is, I found that bromate sampling by an independent sampling firm was 50% higher.
Analysis, not the same.
Analysis was 50% higher on the same. I found out yesterday that it was actually a split sample. It wasn't a separate sample. It was a split sample. And when Gelman analyzed it, so it wasn't that the lab wasn't open. Somebody analyzed it at Gelman.
Eventually, yes.
Well, maybe a few days later. But whatever it was, the independent one was 50% higher, which if that was right, going in all along, then Gelman would have been out of compliance on their bromate discharges 50% of the time. Because it was like 7, and if you take 50% of that and add it to 7, you're over 10. So they would have been over 10 parts per billion if we were using the independent lab instead of Gelman's internal lab. Then I went back, this is the part you don't know yet because you haven't read these things. The same thing happened with dioxane in that same time period. They were discharging 5 parts per billion of dioxane in the lab. The independent lab was coming up with 23% more. And that would have put it close to or over 7 parts per billion on the dioxane discharge limits. So both of those limits maybe should be reduced to adjust for Gelman's lesser quality analysis method. Anyway, that's fine. I'll go over that again later.
And realize that under the current NPDES permit, may have been at 7, above 7, but they are allowed, they're allowed a daily maximum of 22.
Yeah, but this would have been a third of the time they would have been over the dioxane limit, based on the limited sample we had.
This concern's been forwarded to Water Resources,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
They've
we
asked
don't
for,
really have anything more.
yeah, they've
So
asked
That's not our
for,
program, so.
yeah, I've given them the info, like lab data sheets, they asked requests of, plus they're posted, it's June 2017.
Right, which is, you know, why, part of the reason I'm disappointed you're not here today, because now you're gonna have to go back and relay this to them.
But they,
Well, we already did.
they did, other
Well,
than the
but I just tried to
dioxane.
put, well, I'll cover it more in detail later.
I do have a couple of what's new items.
Good.
Additional items, just to let you know, the year-end, the quarterly report, summary of research activities and response actions, December 2019, is posted. It's under the what's new, you know, up top there. And then I moved whatever report was up there, I moved to the selected documents for 2019. So you have any of the quarterly reports don't disappear. I did that, I made a mistake and did that once, and I'm maintaining it, I have it moved and then put the new one up there. And that really, it's, I call the quarterly report, again, my schedule, everything, it really covers May through December. And in there is information where I summarize some things. I've used the template that we started with the EPA and for the technical information.
This is selected documents,
No, look up underneath, see the next one up.
EGLE summary.
EGLE quarterly report summary of recent activity.
Okay, this is your quarterly report.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's under the same thing, what has happened from May through December. Number of wells monthly that are sampled, number of wells monthly, extraction wells that are used. Gallons removed, that type of thing, pounds of dioxane with the calculated pounds of dioxane removed based on concentration, and then what has occurred, like meetings, you know, where we meetings that have occurred and those types of things. And again, there's always that last bullet, the last item, which is ongoing, which we know that is not a good, we have a problem with that. So it's posted, you can go look at it. The EGLE also on there, Roger, the EGLE residential well water results for the whole year are now posted. If you look under recent analytical, basically I've, for all the wells we sampled with, or that Washtenaw County sampled for us and sent to our, the drinking water lab, EGLE drinking water lab, it's keep going down. It's down in 2019, see, bottom right. That has now been posted. Basically, I had to take out all the PI, the personal information. So I basically punch it out of their system and make it an Excel file, delete some of the name, delete the name. So you got the information related there to address of the sample. And not only anything that we've done, not only the dioxane analysis, but this year, if you remember, we expanded to VOCs and SVOCs at selected locations. Those are all also listed. So that is now, someone that is interested of our 2019 sampling can go in and get the whole picture of each of the addresses that were sampled and what was analyzed there.
I would just point out that if somebody viewing this doesn't get the information in 3 to 5 seconds, they leave the site.
That's what we got. That's what we got.
So the person responsible for that is not the county.
Then the last thing is just to confirm and let you guys know that we will, as I promised, commit, we're going to be sampling surface water locations in 2020. And the expanded list, I'll go down quickly through them. Allen Creek Drain, West Park, Allen Creek Drain, Glendale, Little Lake, First Sister Lake, Second Sister Lake, Third Sister Lake, the Smith Pond, east and west, the unnamed Trib at Jackson Road, the unnamed Trib of Honey Creek at Park Road, the unnamed Trib at the Gelman Discharge Outfall. We also, I'm going to go ahead and get some of the ones where I went upstream a little bit of the outfall and downstream. So I'll go ahead, since I'm there, I'll go ahead and get another one of those. It's been a couple of years. And the unnamed, the Honey Creek at Dexter Road, Honey Creek, Huron River, the HCHR confluence. Now, that's what's listed. And Roger, you pointed out in the past, where they take it is down from that confluence. But I'll get it, as I've done, I'll get another sample there.
But this is where they've been taking the output from Honey Creek.
And again, to get to the actual
This is where they
well, that's railroad property and it's a swamp.
This is a good place to take it. Where you
Well, I will be taking there. I took the first one there last year.
Because there's no more tributaries feeding into here.
Yeah. That's what I call Honey Creek at West Huron Drive. That's the bridge there. And that's
Huron River Drive.
Yep. And if I believe last year the concentration was about 3 or 4. And again, that's within that's within what they're discharging to Honey Creek.
Wait a minute, I see 1.2.
Okay, I'm sorry. When I go off the top of my head, I get myself in trouble.
Right.
So 1.2. So I'm gonna go ahead and collect it there again. I will also collect it at the Huron River off North Maple Road Bridge or whatever else it's called. I know.
Foster Bridge.
Yeah, Foster Bridge. I will take it there again. That's at the non-detect. I will go ahead and take it at the Ann Arbor Landing Pond, which is in that apartment complex there. We've done that in the past. Just because to alleviate anybody's feet, we've done it. The non-detect, yep.
Here?
Yeah, but that's a drainage pond mainly for the surface water, for the drainage of that area. But we went ahead and took it because we had a question at one time years ago.
Yeah, that's an old marshy area.
And then West Park Pond, again, that's kind of a surface thing, but we've done it in the past, we'll do it again.
What about Miller Road?
I have not, I didn't.
It's not on this list.
Not on my list, but that doesn't mean we.
It's in the well file, but it's not, there's no sample.
Probably sample for bromine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take it simple.
I'll take a look at that, that's no problem, that's just going up the road on a bridge. As long as it's easy access and we don't have to get the scuba gear on there or cut ourselves through the swamp.
Good.
I did that, we'll try that.
It's good that we have those now with their ex-wives, so I can,
Yep. And the Hannah Nature Area Creek, I'm gonna go ahead and do that
I don't know
again.
if that's worth it.
Well, it is, again, I got a question at a town hall meeting about that. So if, to alleviate and preempt anybody's question of, I will go ahead, it's been years, I'll go ahead
It's a
and.
tough site to get to.
No, not where I get it, down the little hill behind the apartment there. It all comes down the valley there, and before it goes into the pipe, I believe the Allen Creek Drain pipe,
Yeah, it's right there.
there's a creek, well called, and I just grab it out of that.
So how much is Gelman paying for these sampling?
Gelman is not paying,
Zero.
yeah, Gelman is not
Why
paying,
can't we have Gelman pay for this?
again, to get that, I could be corrected, to get that, we would have to ask, and most likely have to, they would object to that and we'd have to go to court.
what was that sample point you just said? The
Hannah Nature Area Creek?
It's just west of West Park.
Yeah, it's west of 7th there, there's some apartments there, and then it goes, the valley's behind, right there. So, understand, again, I believe it would have to fight to get those samples, especially now since.
So what is this going to cost the state of Michigan? Just a ballpark. 100,000?
No. You're talking,
50,000?
no. You're talking a couple days of someone like my time, and then the analysis is for dioxane is like
$200.
100 and a quarter, something like that.
What's the cost per year? What's the budget for this?
It depends on how many wells we do, like the residential.
Jenny, you probably know.
Well, the residential wells next year we're gonna do 190, where a couple of years ago when I first started, we were doing 40. So multiply that by 150. And then this last year, we added the SVOC and DOC analysis. So yes, I mean, it is.
Adds up.
It adds up, but it's not 100,000 or 50, it's tens,
We're including
10,000.
time, staff time.
Yeah, and 10,000, in that ball plus or minus.
Good to know.
That's all I had for updates. Does anybody have any questions?
All right, so next item is Kathy giving you an update on the car calendar for the year.
Okay, we've gone back and forth on these meeting dates. I think Beth has summarized them pretty well here at the bottom. The change in the quarterly meetings. Jenny, can you kind of clarify, is this room available now for these meetings?
For the quarterly meetings, this room is available. As of right now, again, our building is under construction, so that might change. But as of right now, we are scheduled for all the quarterly meetings in this room. Which the quarterly meetings got shifted by a month because they kept falling on November of the election year. So to alleviate all that conflict in the future, they are now June, September, and December.
She really did, because EGLE gets every other year. Let's get it all.
And so EGLE steps off on
Yeah.
election days, so every other year.
National elections.
Yeah, national.
So, which is it right now? What's on the card site, or is it what's on this?
It's all the same.
At least she updated, I don't
So
care.
you've got everything on the card site?
Yep. And then there was conflict with Scioto Township on election days, so May, August, and November meetings, so those are also here, and those are evening meetings in this room.
So wait, so March 3rd, no, March 3rd,
We'll be at Scioto Township. March and April at Scioto.
yeah.
We come back here for May and June.
The next quarterly is June, which would have been in May last year.
April 7th, okay, so they're
We
on.
kind of,
All right.
So July 7th is at Scio, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
it's on there.
Okay. Because we kept going back and forth. I just want to be sure we're, okay.
Well, we're glad Eagle
Card
and
calendar
AG's
on the
comes,
page
so
is up to date, and you can subscribe to
Appreciate
it, and
Yeah, and
it now has end date.
I'm coming to your monthlies, and I will commit unless I get hit by that Iron City beer truck.
Pittsburgh, I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The big brewery down there is Iron City Beer.
Okay.
And I
Good
grew up,
enough.
my grandfathers, they're all,
It's an old family
it's
saying.
an inside joke. And that's,
Very inside.
yes.
I just want to point out something Jenny said. This is I've subscribed to the county's card calendar. And up until, what, this morning or something like that?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, there was a bug in the way, if it didn't have an end time or something, it defaulted to midnight. So it looked like the rest of the day was going to be used for the card reading.
That'd be fun.
So Jenny called the IT, got that fixed. So feel free to subscribe to the card calendar so you don't have to keep entering these things by hand. Does everybody know how to do that?
Yeah, I did it.
You can go to, if you go to the card website and you say download or subscribe, it creates a little file you download and you import that into whatever calendar program you have. And then it magically taps that. So when it changes at the county's calendar, it automatically changes on your calendar. So if the meeting goes to a different time or day or whatever, it will automatically change. I wish more organizations would use that subscription model so you don't have to deal with calendar changes by hand. You let the person in charge of the calendar take care of the changes and it shows up everywhere, so.
And Jenny gets a cut of the income from it?
Oh, no, I don't even, I give it to IT, I just don't.
You don't get charged.
Locations.
And the turnaround's pretty good, pretty quick on that, right? I mean,
That's why I keep my calendars in the note folders. I don't.
this is how things should work. I mean, when we've got so many organizations, so many entities involved in working on this, we have to stay coordinated, and that's just one of the ways that we can use technology to help solve the problems. I know sometimes it's a change in how you do things. I've been dealing with this with Dan Knol and other people who are even younger than me. But it saves a lot of time once you get into it.
So on to chair.
Oh, me.
Your turn, right?
Yeah. All right, so I've got about half of the new Google Earth mashup done. And I'll just point out a few things about it.
Thanks for doing that.
Oh,
That's fun.
you know, when you do something once a year, and even though I have a list of every step I've gone through, so there's like 150 steps I have to do, including downloading the data from EGLE, getting it out of Access database into a spreadsheet, and then correcting all the errors. I won't bore you with all the steps, but even if I have that, there's always something new. So I think this year might be the first time we've had something called surface water as a aquifer type. So I had to make adjustments based on that. Like you don't see surface water listed here, you see all these other aquifers. So I stuck, surface water gets stuck under other. So when you look at, for instance, Dexter Road and Honey Creek, here's the data for that location. Because it's always going to be a miscellaneous. It's not a monitoring, well, it's monitoring, but it's not the same kind of monitoring as a regular well anyway. I'm trying to keep some consistency in how the information is related. It's good to see these drain sampling locations on here. There are a lot of other locations that should be on here that aren't, or at least they're not official. Again, for those who haven't seen this, I'll just run through it real quickly. We have the water features, so we can turn on and off the creeks and the surface water and the drains. We have a layer here for like all the Scioview Township parcels that have wells or could have wells. So you kind of get an idea of, as this moves north, how many of these wells might get contaminated before it gets to Barton Pond. The same for Ann Arbor Township wells. A lot of these have already been annexed to the city, but there's still a lot of that haven't. There's still a lot of wells in the way. We have the jurisdiction boundaries, the city of Ann Arbor, and then we have to go down to another one here for Scioview Township, Ann Arbor Township. So if you pan back, you'll see these boundaries on a map. So this is all interactive and it's all downloadable, and Google Earth Pro is free. We have all the feature names that you can turn on and off. Then we have the two-dimensional plume maps going back as far as I was able to retrace them, because again, we don't get the shape files. I have to make these shapes by hand. I'll just point out one concern that went around in that piece of paper. You've got this little notch here in the D2 plume. That notch isn't really there. It's there because they don't sample some of these wells anymore. So when somebody looks at this, oh look, they've cleaned up a lot of this plume. Not really. Because if you look at some of these older wells, they haven't sampled them for years.
And those were pretty high numbers.
Well, they were high, but these had to be replaced. And LB1 is another one here, LB1. Well, actually, that was sampled.
LB1 is an extraction well. It was part of the original extraction.
Yeah.
An evergreen, LB1, LB3,
Yeah,
currently
yeah,
it's
yeah,
LB4.
But because there's no monitoring wells there, they're saying there's no dioxane there.
No,
Map
Roger,
shows
they're not
that.
saying that. The way you're depicting it is saying that. They're analytical, the lab reports I get.
No, this is their maps. This
Okay,
is
you're
their
talking
report.
about the quarterly ISO
Yeah.
concentration maps.
Yeah. And the, you know, it's like, it's not there. Anyway, I just want to point out that by having, and of course, everybody knows by now that these plume maps are approximations, that we need to look more at Larry Lemke's model of the extruded, narrow pathways with high concentrations. Because it doesn't spread like syrup on a table, it spreads more like spaghetti being extruded out of the Play-Doh machine. And because of that, we don't know where this dioxane at this former homeowner well, 465 DuPont, we don't know where that's going. We don't know where it came from. It probably wasn't this pathway. We guess that because there's no monitoring wells here. Similarly here at MW100 and IW2, really high concentrations, really high. Where's the monitoring wells that show what the shape of this, how this dioxane got there? Did it go up here and come back? Did it go up here? Did it come sideways? There's really a dearth of monitoring in here. And this is areas that could be monitored. We don't even have the full information for the monitoring well that is here. You know what this one is? This is Weber's. They had a non-recirculating heat pump. We don't know where that was screened, do we? We don't have a well log for that. Jenny, do you know? So we don't know if this is the same elevation that this 2,400 parts per billion is coming from. How did, I mean, there's some algorithm that magically drew this shape, but based on what?
That's modeling, Roger.
Yeah.
Are they actually?
Based on what, 2 wells?
Are they drawing it by hand? Because that was my understanding.
I thought it was hand drawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in ISO concentration.
Well, that's even worse.
You're doing, the ISO concentration, Roger, you know, some of your statements, you know, where you say, because you have a green area and saying it's not in there, well, you know, yes, there's not a contour line going through there, but utilizing the ISO concentration maps, that they're, you know, in between the ISO concentrations, they have on their map here, they have 85 to the south and to the north. In between that, there is a concentration. You interpret that concentration, that is a positive detections are going to be found there. Now, your other statement, and I'm not arguing with you, please.
Sounds like you're apologizing for lack of data.
No, Roger, I'm not apologizing at all. What I'm stating is, your particular questions are within the prohibition zone. Under the current consent judgment, there are certain things that have to be done. So yes, they're not having a well every 30 feet because they aren't required to under consent judgment as long as as long as they have enough information to identify that it's staying within the prohibition zone and not going outside at 85. Now, your opinion.
Wait, you just said something new there.
What?
You said as long as it's staying within the prohibition zone and not going outside at 85.
Yeah, that we out of compliance if under the current consent judgment, if concentrations of groundwater go outside the prohibition zone at concentrations greater than 85.
Which part of the prohibition zone?
The whole prohibition zone. That's what the prohibition zone was placed there for, as a boundary.
So if it can be 2,800 inside the prohibition zone, maybe technically 280 sometime soon.
Well, that's another goal of the Maple in the current judgment, that another goal of this current consent judgment, that concentrations greater than 2,800 don't go east of Maple. So that's why there's extraction wells over that area. But that prohibition zone is an institutional control that things are allowed to move around in there. Now, they're not outside of compliance, and that's the current regulation we have. No one in the prohibition zone is drinking the water. They're not allowed to drink the water. We have 1 or 2 layers of monitor. I mean, they'd have to get a permit from the county, but the prohibition zone, when it was set up, they went around and basically put everybody in that prohibition zone on city water.
So here's a well, the last shallow well with that elevation before the edge of the prohibition zone. CW103S.
Yes.
And here's the last 2 years, the high concentration is above 85, but because they had
And it's not out of
285s, well, actually they did, didn't they? We had 285s in a row. So something should have happened to keep this from going outside at 85, because this is the last second well before.
NW 112 down to the west there. That's right on the boundary. That's a well.
But how do you know it's not going this way?
And the city actually is spending money to put in monitoring wells because EGLE is not authorized them. So we have our own wells going in to the northern prohibition zone and outside the prohibition zone.
To the north.
To the north, right.
Let's not get diverted.
I'm just saying that the city is forced to pay for that.
It's good that somebody's going to do that, but why is it not being done by the responsible party?
Because we have a current consent judgment that the county has put in place that is the regulating tool for this plume.
Right.
And so they
We had a
are within
consent
compliance
judgment.
of that one.
Let me interrupt you, Dan, because we had a consent judgment for the Evergreen Pool too. The consent judgment covered the Evergreen Pool. And look where it's gone.
Yep.
Within the prohibition zone.
Within the prohibition zone, so.
Concentrations will continue to increase as the plume migrates.
So we're betting that this is going to stay within the prohibition zone.
We're under current consent judgment negotiations.
So one of the things you need to look at when the revised consent judgment comes out is whether or not the polluter is going to pay for the things that you're asking for.
Polluter should pay for all this.
I know. So when we give you a draft copy of that, look and see if they're going to do that.
Right, yeah. And then also, why is it still 85?
Because we're going to go replacement consent.
And what happens in the future? I mean, let's say they make it 7.2. What happens 5 years from now when science says it really should be 3.5 or 1 or 0.35 like other states have? Will it take another 3 years or longer to change the consent judgment? That's the problem with the consent judgment, is that it's favoring delays, where if it were an EPA site, that would be done much quicker, as we saw with another Michigan dioxane Superfund site, where the standards changed overnight. Remember that it wasn't always 85, it was 3 when I first got involved. Back when Michigan used to care about protecting its citizens more. And then overnight, it changed to 77, and then a couple of years later, it changed to 85, and it's been stuck there even after the EPA said in 2010, it should be 3.5. Anyway, the other parts of I want to just point out a couple things here that could make our understanding of the site better. If we fill in some of the missing data. So here are the green dots are all places where it's non-detect. So you can have non-detect in the middle of really high concentrations, because it could be at a different elevation. It could be in one of these areas where these fingers are moving alongside it. Here's all of the locations that I call inactive because they weren't read in 2019. So we have a lot of monitoring wells, but these weren't read in 2019. Well, somebody's got to pay for that for a reason, and maybe some of those are no longer valid, they're not appropriate, but here are the wells that were never read. There's locations that were established and for some reason never read. Here are the maximum concentrations per year, so you can go up here and play this timeline and see where the dioxane has been over the years at its maximum level for those individual wells. Now, some of those are higher concentration than others, but this gives you a picture of where the dioxane is going over the years. And I haven't updated this for 2019 yet. We talked about the trend analysis a little bit. We actually have some layers that show where this is Gelman's own trend analysis, and it's broken down because I guess they didn't know how to change the parameter to look at all the wells. They looked at, they look at 40 samples at a time. So this is the last 40, and this is categorized by whether turn off these others. Just going to look at the last 40, and these are the ones where the green stars are where the concentrations are going down according to their own trend analysis. These are, the red ones are where the concentrations are going up by their own trend analysis. These are where they're stable. There's only a couple. And then these are where there's not enough trend to do an analysis, not an update. So I did this within a couple weeks after the trend analysis was released. When was it? Last year? May, was it? There's some other data that we'd like to have. I approximated it, but we don't have precise locations, and that would be the missing locations. We don't have XYs for all these wells. Now they show either on Gelman maps or on Gelman cross-section diagrams. So we know, somebody knows where they are, but they're not, the location is not in the current database. I've taken and approximated where they are based on maps, but some of these, some of, they only have the data during the drilling, and that's another whole layer I don't have, is what were the concentrations during the sampling when the well was first drilled or re-drilled, replaced. We don't have that information in a form that we can integrate with this. You have to go to the cross-section diagrams and hope that Gelman put those on the cross-section diagrams in order to get that information. But a lot of these wells, you see some very high concentrations in, 60 to 100 foot span of aquifer, and they might only put 1 or 2 screens in there. And after 10 or 20 years, we don't know if that other dioxane on either side of those screens is still there. We have a hint that it might still be, because there were a couple times when Gelman put in wells near each other, TW17, TW14, and I've shown you this analysis before where there was 21,000 parts per billion that wasn't screened, and there was at a certain elevation in TW14 there was a screen put in 50 feet away. When TW17 was drilled, they did a sampling all the way down, and they still found higher concentrations 50 feet away that weren't showing up in TW14 samples. So even within that short period, there was dioxane still left there. That could be going on at a lot of sites. We know it's similar to what happened out here in the Saginaw Forest with TW123. There was another boring made near that, because when MW125 was drilled, it didn't go to bedrock because they hit a boulder and they had to stop. And we complained about that. What turned out later, without us knowing about it, because we didn't get the well log right away, there was another boring put in nearby, and it went to bedrock. And it found double and triple parts per billion in other layers, other than what the NW125 are screened up. So we don't really know what's going on with this offshoot down here. And we got a couple wells that might detect it later, but we don't even have, we just don't have all that information that we need to understand the reality of what's going on. So my whole purpose of pulling all this together, I use it to help my understanding of the site, but I want to have other people delve into it and see if they can see things that we need to alert and say, hey, there's something going on here. Let's try to figure it out before it gets a surprise. Because that's kind of what happened here with this 4705 breach with a homeowner well that got contaminated. Even though there's a monitoring well like nearby, and the plume map, prior plume maps didn't show the dioxane anywhere near there. And again, these yellow outline ones are ones that we do ourselves. The company does not show where the dioxane is at levels of detect. It only shows where it is at the current cleanup standards, 85 parts per billion. They don't even provide the maps at the supposed cleanup. I mean, this is not part of the prohibition zone. We don't have the maps that show where it is at 7.2 here, where there's a lot of homeowner wells, you know, that are going to be affected by this if this continues to spread. You know, so this is what we're dealing with. Anyway, what else have I got? New concerns, well, I pointed out a couple of them. The one that I passed around was about bromate and dioxane. The sampling that ATS, Ann Arbor Testing Services uses, Technical Services uses, is 50% higher for that time period than Gelman's sampling for bromate, and about 25% higher for that same time period split samples of dioxane. And both of those, if those would have been, if ATS's samples would have been used, Gelman might have been out of compliance 50% of the time on bromate and about 25%, a third of the time maybe on dioxane. And has the county or the state done any split samplings of the discharge?
No, that's planned for 2020.
Okay,
No,
so
I've done, you know, being, the Allen Creek drain thing took up a lot of the time.
right,
Just when this
that's
happened,
right, but that's being
Back
planned
into split sampling this year.
for this year.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there going to be?
Oh, am I sampling bromate?
NPDES.
You're asking about bromate. No, I hadn't thought about that.
Right, I mean, it seems like if you're out there, you should, I mean, is it the same volume of water, is it?
I don't know what the bromate water requirement.
But I'm saying it seems like they're out there, but again, we're not sure, at least I'm not sure. Because Gelman, so I asked ATS, did you guys actually go out and do the sample? And they said, no, they're providing the sample.
Yeah, Gelman does.
So I still don't know if they're taking the sample right from the pipe, or if they're taking it from the creek after it comes out of the pipe, the tributary after it comes out of the pipe. Do you know?
Permit's going to describe where.
Yeah, I don't remember. You know, when I split the intake, I take it, it's dangerous to get it coming out of the pipe. So I take it right with a pole and a bottle right next to where it discharges.
Yeah. Well, I hope it's coming out of the pipe, because that'd be the most accurate thing.
Well, they
Well, I sort of guesses that they're taking it from a port within before it
Within
gets
their
to the
system,
pipe
yeah.
at the end.
So, yeah, I don't.
That would be good to know too.
It would be, and permit's very descriptive on what the application is.
I'll check.
Yeah, well, the agreement with the city was very descriptive of where the sampling for bromate should be at Huron River.
Can you send me that, Roger? You quoted, I just haven't been able to put my fingers on it quickly, about what your statement about the city agreement, where they have to take it. Can you give me that? Can you send that, where you're getting that from? And what I'll be checking too internally with Kelm. So you have a question, we're gonna try to get it.
Yeah, I thought I sent that already, but I'll resend.
Yep, maybe you have. It's a lot of information and.
Brian, you said, well, it's in the agreement. Well, this is where
The permit should
the
specify.
bromate sampling is supposed to be for the city. It's the Gelman sampling for bromate.
Right.
This is where they actually sample.
Yeah, I understand that. I was surprised to find that out myself.
Yeah, everybody was.
When I first got on this, I was like,
And
oh, wait.
what we don't know, was it always here? Did they actually sample from here at any time? We don't know.
And I haven't asked that question specifically. I just went, that's where they took me when I said I want to split there.
Right.
And the split at the HR. In
So-
my database, that's their
That would be a
HC.
good, that would be a good question to
I have
ask.
that on my list.
Did you always sample from this location? Or did you sample somewhere else and still call it HCHR?
Yeah, Honey Creek / Huron River is what it was.
Because, you know, there's another tributary that exits here. Before, so it's not just Honey Creek.
Well, it's a large volume of water that it's emptying to.
I know, it's a approximation, but I'm just saying,
You know.
if there was contamination here,
So you're running about 20 minutes late.
thank you for that time. What else we got?
Did you still have questions?
Yeah, is it in order to ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I am the new liaison from the Board of Commissioners, so I've been following the issue quite closely, but I'm also a little new here, so I feel like maybe it's fair to ask a couple questions. So when you have a split sample, and you have AATS taking a sample and getting a result that's very different from what Gelman's getting, how do you deal with that? Do you, because to me, it seems like if we really want to know what's happening, we would want to split those samples ourselves, or EGLE split them, and get a third number, because those two don't match up. And so what for the permit is governing? Is it?
I have to go, that's a different program, and, you know, what we would do if I split and suddenly I got a weird difference between the EGLE lab, environmental lab, and the Gelman lab, is go redo it. Like I said, in 2017, Gelman in there, and, you know, did identify that, and did check and have some information and discussion that, an explanation of why there's a different method, and the other new ATS method is, you know, in the literature identifies that there's a lot of interferences, and this happens at certain geochemical conditions. And so it didn't go further than that. And again, under the permit, I don't know what is required when there's a discrepancy.
Was that in their subsequent quarterly report to you?
I did check it. I did not check it. I have, it basically is the lab report I get that Gelman sent. And
Probably wouldn't want to wait till quarterly report anyway, though.
right, but again, I take a brief, when I get these, I'm getting them monthly, when I get these, I take a quick look. I did not catch that, you know, whatever. Again, as far as the bromate, it's a different program. I'm always looking for dioxane.
You have like a checklist of things that you check?
Yeah, I have generated an internal checklist of what I'm checking for, like at certain locations, the compliance monitoring wells. I kind of done that in a rough checklist for me. I haven't formalized it, I haven't, you know.
Could you formalize that and share it?
Don't volunteer.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is,
I'm kidding, but.
I'll take a look to see, let me see
Is
if I can
that
get it.
foilable?
I don't know. Again, what I have is just.
If you put a formal list together, yes, it would be good. There would be no reason not to.
My formal, it's my handwriting list that kind of have on a, it's bigger than a Post-it. So, on there, just, when I get that, to remind me to take a look at compliance wells or something specific. And, bromate was not on that currently. I mean, that's the other program. I look at dioxane.
So,
the local officials have some tough decisions to be made in the next couple months, and I think that information, kind of trying to make a conciliation between those numbers would be helpful to us in thinking about things. So if that could be done, I would appreciate it. And then the other thing on the sampling site, I know that one site well where the sample is actually being taken, there's so much water that flows between that and the site that it sounds like the sample they're supposed to, the Honey Creek, that I can't even imagine that the two have much to do with each other. When I was in college, I took samples for water quality leachate coming out of a landfill, and the requirement of where I stood was very specific. I mean, it was almost like there was an X on the pavement, and even as a college student, I was very able to do that, and so I have a hard time believing that that's a mistake. And gosh, I would sure like to see the sample taken from the outflow of Honey Creek, because I just can't imagine that the site downstream has anything to do with what's happening in Honey Creek, because so much water is added.
well, when Dan took the first sample for dioxane, it was non-detected because he took it here. And then when he took it here after a discussion in one of the meetings like this, where it should have been taken, it was 1.2. So
Okay, that was inbound from where it actually discharges, like I said.
Well, but it is.
Physical access to that exact point.
this is a lot,
Yeah,
actually the discharge happens right
Close.
here.
It's close.
It's like within how many feet away it is? It's like 20 feet, so that's close enough to the district, because this is backwash, this is surface water. This is not flowing water. This is because of Barton Dam, the water backs up. So if you take it here, it's already into the mixing zone. Or if you take it here, it's before the mixing zone. Right, Kevin?
Well, you know there, Roger? I have.
You think this looks more like this?
Marsh.
Yeah, it's a marshy area.
So it's basically got standing water in it.
Well, in between the cattails, yeah.
So you wouldn't look at this and say that's a creek. Okay, so this is the creek.
Yeah, it kind of.
So this is where you should be sampling for anything that's in the creek.
Yeah.
If you want to sample for what's in the marshy area, then you can sample here, right? Am I right?
If you're saying Honey Creek, do it in the creek.
Yeah, and there's a reason that these layers that came from responsible organizations that make them didn't make this a single line like Honey Creek is. There's parts of Honey Creek that are marshy areas too. But this is the creek part of marsh, of what goes through there. So this is the proper place to take the sample, as Sue's pointing out. What else did you want to talk about?
No, that's good, those were the two comments, thank you.
And, where the samples locations are makes a difference. I've found some more wells that are shown on the map in the wrong place, that they're actually somewhere else. MW14S and NOW1 or whatever it is, it's supposed to be near the purge. The purge wells is actually a block down gradient. So this is why I continue to ask for somebody goes out with the right kind of equipment to tell where the X and Y are for all these wells and the Z. What's the elevation at the top of casing? because there's a lot of copper casing data missing. And copper casing is important because when you do the static water levels, you're measuring from copper casing down. And if you're using ground elevation or approximation of copper casing, then your groundwater flow information could be off. That's why it's important to be, we need the best data. We need to know the reality of where the wells are, where the copper casing is, and also all the other information, all the normal well log information.
So can I ask that we skip ahead to number 8 before Jeff has to leave?
Okay? I think I'm done anyway. But thanks for letting me review all this.
So I just want to say what I can say within the confines of our confidentiality agreement. Yesterday, the parties had a status conference with the judge. I didn't attend, so I can't reveal anything that was said in the meeting because I don't know that. But I do know that the judge will be issuing a scheduling order that will obligate the parties to complete certain activities by certain dates. This is a good thing because Gelman's ploy has always been delay and obstruction. So having the judge oversee a schedule of events is important. Included in that scheduling order, I believe there will be a date for them to give us a response to our last offer. I believe that will come up by the end of this month. Our next council meeting where we'll discuss whether or not to ask the EPA to come in is March 2nd. It's my impression that we will have a draft CJ to look at by that point in time. It's my understanding that just shortly subsequent to that meeting, there will be another meeting of the parties with the judge, and it will be a public meeting, so the public will be able to attend.
In the courthouse.
Yes. To follow up on the progress of, in this scheduling order. At some point in that realm of time, the parties are likely to discuss modifying the confidentiality agreement so that we can actually release a draft consent judgment to the public. We are going to insist that the public have the draft CJ in advance of a public hearing so that everybody has time to review the content. There will be one or more public meetings, depending on whether we do a combined public meeting or each body have its own public hearing on the subject. And then subsequent to those public meetings where we hear from anyone who wants to speak on the subject, the bodies will vote on whether or not to accept the consent judgment. So that's kind of as much as I can say. I think.
I have a quick question. Did council last night vote to petition the US EPA?
It was on our agenda and we postponed it until March 2nd.
Okay.
That's partially because of this.
And when you say vote, will that be open to the public, like from all Scioto County?
It'll have to be on our meeting agenda, it'll be an item on our agenda to accept or reject it.
From the other bodies as well?
Yeah.
We'll know who voted what way. I like to win.
We know that the other bodies are
Mention
coordinating.
that.
So,
I don't know what the other bodies are doing. This is all so preliminary that we haven't even had consensus on whether to have one public hearing or 3. And so, good thinking. But what I'm saying is that we're making the public commitment to allow the public to have a draft of the CJ in advance of having a public hearing where anybody who's concerned can tell us what's on their mind. And then at a subsequent meeting, we will vote so that after we take all the public comments, we won't just immediately turn around and vote everything.
That's good. So this thing, things are moving along. Was this the first such conference with the judge?
So,
Since they-
actually, our attorneys had asked for a scheduling conference, I think in November, and just the judge's schedule didn't allow it to happen until now, but,
Good. So, but this is the first time he really got involved, correct?
in recent
We've
times.
had, there's been other status conferences.
With the judge,
But this was.
Well, with the lawyers.
but not the judge.
Oh, yeah.
No, what did you show?
It's been a while.
So we're not even there. I mean, we're not even
No,
there.
it was just lawyers. It was unusual to have Mr. Hayner there.
Sometimes today.
Is that secret?
What's that?
Are those
Do you remember when the last one was?
status conferences with the
Oh,
judge?
This one was supposed to be in December, and the one previous to that was, it was March.
I was thinking spring.
Yeah, it was like,
Yeah.
it was like this March.
But we don't know what the judge, did he just sit there?
At this one?
I don't think we're supposed to talk about that.
I would agree that
The judge was a full participant.
Yes, he's participating fully in this process, and it is his courtroom, and he is in charge of this process.
But because it wasn't an open session, I don't know that we can really reveal what went on inside there, so.
But I'm just curious of whether
I
he's
will just tell
taking
you-
an active role.
I'm impressed with his current role.
Good.
All right, so one more item for Vince, number
Yeah.
7.
Yeah, so I'll be quick here, try to be quick. So after the joint session, Administrator Lazarus asked if I would come talk to him about vapor intrusion tests that he had contemplated, that he had put together a draft and was going to present it to City Council for a vote to test basement vapor intrusion on the west side. I don't know details about location.
Are they testing air or water?
Pardon me?
Are they testing air or water?
Both, potentially both. I don't know, definitely air.
Okay, that was not my understanding, but maybe some.
Well, that was, you talk about vapor intrusion, so,
Well, you talk about vapor intrusion, but you're actually talking about water.
well, when I sat down with him, he talked about vapor intrusion.
Okay.
And one of the discussions I also had with him was Stuart Batterman, Dr. Stuart Batterman at the University of Michigan School of Public Health and Engineering, has a postdoc who they both want to validate models they've calculated for vapor intrusion. So they look at how much water is contaminated outside the basement and how that relates to potential vapor intrusion concentrations. Dr. Bailey here has also done similar modeling and has talked to them about his models and their models, and there's some discussion there. We had given the DEQ Bob's model and EPA the model, and we've not heard back on any evaluation of that, which would be worth getting, I think. One option that was discussed with city staff and the administrator was potentially using the West Park band shell as a test site for Dr. Batterman. They have a basement at the band shell.
Good.
And it's not used. It has a lot of water in it. In fact, they filled it, from what I understand, somewhat because it had water. He seemed to indicate that that would be a good option for him, considering how they want to look at it or evaluate it. So I have requested with a city staff member whether we can get a look at the band shell, and they are looking into doing that. And one other thing I want to talk about, there's a Earth Day 50-year Earth Day event at School of Public Health. It's actually it's organized by the School of Public Health Lead Center, which Rita used to run, and that was somebody else in control of it. But Linda Birnbaum is a very famous environmental toxicologist, former director of the National Institutes of Environmental Health Sciences and National Toxicology Program. And this will be at the U of M Michigan Lead on February 20th, 9 to 4. They had a huge response to this, so it may be tricky getting in if you haven't registered. But you can try and register and try and attend. with, it's an all-day event. Bob Bailey and Rita and myself are doing posters, so we're gonna have a poster up. Bob's will be on vapor intrusion, generally speaking. Rita and I and Bob will be working on another poster that covers more general 1,4 dioxane and Ann Arbor issues. And so these posters will be up, and people can come around and ask questions of the authors who will stand at the posters. So it should be very well responded to. They were very surprised that they were overcommitted. They have a lot of people interested. So it's basically the title is from PBBs to PFAS. Michigan's large scale chemical contaminants. And Linda Birnbaum will give a keynote address. So kind of thought I'll say that.
Of course, if you can't get in physically,
yes,
most of the talks are going to be live streamed, so you can watch them at home.
Online, yeah.
But are you actually giving a talk, or are you just doing the posters?
Just posters.
Because they asked me that I'm gone that week.
Okay.
So I hope there's enough people, knowledgeable people here to, when the questions come up about dioxane, that if you're an audience member, you can maybe respond with the reality of the situation. And then, the C's in school public health, the charrette they had a little 2 summers ago, I think it was. Galaxy program, that there's a new post up on that. I've added to the SRSW website the link to it, so it's on the landing page, right at the bottom here. UMC, C's Galaxy, the gala briefing on dioxane. This is a relatively new post that has links to the other prior stuff with Vince and I and Rita and Mitch. Little video clips they took of us afterward, talking about the dioxane thing. So this is gives you an idea, and there's a link here to the other information. So trying to pull this together in a way that keeps the community informed. Even though we don't have separate funding to do this, CES does, and we need to do a better job, I think, within the different governmental entities of deciding who's going to say what about the dioxane, so that it's not up on one entity's website, and then it gets out of gate where more information is available elsewhere. So maybe we should have a separate subgroup meeting on this, how the local entities need to work together to keep people informed. I've already approached Jenny about going through and seeing what information the county has in what form. Try to fill out this information infrastructure diagram that I posted a couple of years ago. And I just had a meeting with Howard Lazarus at the city and shared that idea with him. He took a copy of it. It's not just between the different local governments, but it's also internally within each local government. There's staff that know some things that the administrators or the policymakers don't necessarily know. We need to think about how we can improve that flow of information. So that, I mean, there's things like about well information that I was able to pull out because it had the Gelman in the note field. And we don't know who actually put that in. Somebody in staff did that. And that was good. But it wasn't formalized. And not everybody knew about it.
All right, well, it is noon, so are there any last minute?
Anybody in the audience have any questions before we leave? Yes, Patty?
Yeah, hi, I'm Patty Benson. I'm an SRSW board member along with Roger. I don't remember if the current consent judgment requires independent monitoring by a third party at any point, and if not, is that an item for consideration in the negotiations for the revised consent judgment?
Good question. They have done split samples with outside, and most of the time for dioxane, they match pretty close. So we're kind of trusting Gelman's sampling, but we have some anomalies here and there that, you know, can be worrisome, and we need to follow up on that. But that's a good question.
And as it is, you know, EGLE has the ability to split a sample, any sample that's collected when it wants to.
Yeah, I just didn't know, you know, if there's a formal.
It doesn't have to be in the consent judgment.
Okay.
It's an independent authority.
Okay.
And follow up on that, and Sue's question, could you guys go out and do a bromate and dioxane sampling at Gelman tomorrow?
Not tomorrow.
How about the next day? Unannounced.
I can't answer that.
I would say generally, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Could you
on
make
the
that
physical
happen?
scheduling, I can't answer that.
I mean, typically, that would fall under an emergency scenario where we believe there's something emergency dangerous to life and health. That
Well, it's
would-
not an emergency because it was 2017, you know, but we just now noticed this.
I mean, typically, our form would be to ask for voluntary access versus just barging in and showing
So
up.
could you do that?
The question is can we or will we?
Yeah. Will we?
Could we? Yes, physically we could. Will we? I have no clue, and I don't know why. If you have a reason to believe, you could write it up and send it over.
Well, but I'm not the regulatory agency. Would that, is there something that would trigger that? What does it take to trigger that?
Well, like I
If we
said,
thought that they were lying and it was emergency dangerous.
Not that they're lying, it's just that they're using a method that's not detecting.
I'm just trying to answer the question, Roger. If you want to keep changing the
Wait,
question, then I'll wait till you're done with the
Roger,
final
wait,
question.
like I said,
Sorry.
All I'd like to say is I want to thank everyone. I'm leaving EGLE at the end of this week. I've taken a position with Department of Health and Human Services as the section manager for the Chemical Emergency Response section. I've learned a lot through this process. And I wish everyone good luck. And if you ever have a question with Health and Human Services, you will reach out to our local contacts and they can reach us as well through many.
Well, good luck, Jerry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I take part of the responsibility of making.
No. It's a promotion, so it's not that I'm out of here and I'm just moving to another job to get there. It's an extra one for me and my.
So who's taking your place?
At this point, Shao Doxter will be acting. My understanding is that position will probably be posted this week, if not early next
And
week.
how are we getting that person up to speed?
Through the same process as I am, bringing them to these meetings to talk to you. And
So how long did it take you to get to a?
I wouldn't say I'm there.
Well,
No, but
that's
how long did it take you when you took over for Mitch?
Several months. I mean, again, you got some really good people here that can quickly, everyone on this whole side provides us, and me personally, including you and everyone in this room.
Well, I'll be glad to spend some time doing what I did with Dan and doing what I did with other people over the years to try to fill in some of the institutional knowledge that we have. But how that goes on forward, it should be an issue for everybody here to think about. Like, if no one's going to be in this position when this dioxane is still there, so how do you pass on your institutional knowledge to the people that take over? Think about that.
Thank you all for coming. We're adjourned. And someone will stick around if you have additional questions or want to speak.
Yeah, feel free to chat afterwards. I think I've got somebody here from WE.
No. It's always. Oh, what? Yes.